UFC 315.
You guys are watching Fight Feed, and today I'm going to be giving you my recap of the UFC 315 pay-per-view event that just happened in Montreal, Canada. My quick hits for this card, guys. JDM, the new Australian champion of the welterweight division, put on a masterclass performance, and I'm very proud of that performance. It's actually one of the fights that I picked, and I picked Mr. Jean Camo to get the win against Belal Muhammad. If you guys are interested, you can go and watch the 45-minute breakdown that I did earlier in the week, showcasing Jack Della Maddalena's boxing and finishing ability on the feet. It breaks down everything that I feel played to his style and actually getting this win against Belal. Fantastic performance from him. And then in the co-main event, another big pick for myself when I'm tracking these picks, I chose Valentina Shevchenko to get the win over Manon Fiorot. And that's exactly what happened. Don't think that there was any doubts there once they went to the final scorecards. I knew she was going to get the win. Great performance from her as well. And then another big one for me was the Ayman Zahabi pick. I picked Zahabi to beat Jose Aldo. Very close fight and very crazy ending to the fight. Ayman almost looked like he was going to be, losing to a KO potentially in the round 3, was able to roll out of it and ends up getting on top and almost KOing Jose Aldo. In terms of just other performances on the card to call out before we dive into each performance, we have to give Natalia Silva a ton of credit. She went out there and I think put on a masterclass performance against Alexa Grasso. She really won in the striking on the feet, but then also obviously she always has that grappling threat. But she looked fantastic against Alexa. Definitely probably the next contender outside of, I think there's a couple others that are in the mix there and in that division in terms of getting a title shot. But I think Natalia Silva's, you could argue her being next in line to get the title shot against Valentina. I think a lot of people are saying Natalia will win that fight. I don't know exactly on that one, but we'll have to see how it plays out. I do think Valentina brings another level of skill to the octagon that these women just simply don't have. And I think that was the case with Manon Fiorot. I knew that Valentina was the better fighter and that she brings way more experience than Manon. And dude, look at Valentina's record. She's now 25-4, 25-4-1. So she has double the fights over pretty much all these women if you look at their records. Not to mention that 25-4-1 record is it is filled to the brim with UFC level fights. Like they're UFC record fights. Fuck me. They're UFC fights. Whereas I'm sure if you dig into some of these other girls' records, they have a lot of pro wins outside of the UFC. And then the other fight on the card to call out is Benoit Saint Denis. He had a great performance against Kyle Prepolek. Kyle Prepolek actually, I was thinking for all those D-gens out there, I had a feeling for all the D-gens out there, shout out to Everglade Rat Snake on my channel, always commenting stuff. I felt like Kyle Prepolek could be a huge underdog potentially. And he actually was tagging Benoit a little bit, but ultimately Benoit was able to bring this fight into his domain and get that W. So it was a great win for him. Obviously, sucks for him that he had a very high caliber matchup with that of Joel Alvarez. It was going to be a fun fight, very challenging fight, I think, for Benoit. And regardless, he was able to go out there and get the win. So I got to give him respect for that. Now, I think this week, guys, instead of digging into all the prelim stuff first, I'm going to start off with the main card stuff, and then we'll go back. So that way you guys can get a taste of my recap for those events. So let's talk about the JDM Belal fight. I think it is kind of embarrassing to see that there are people online saying Belal won this fight. It's kind of embarrassing, guys. Belal did not win this fight, okay? And I was actually even shocked. This is where I have to rewatch, but going through the fight round by round, I feel round 1, JDM should have got the nod by all the judges in round 1. I don't think that Belal did anything in round 1 that was in any way overpowering JDM. I think the only thing that Belal probably did in round 1 that JDM didn't do was that he walked forward more, which, okay, Throughout the whole fight, Bilal walked forward more, but he caught more punches on his dome than Jack did. Round one, I guess, though, because there was not a lot of action, I could see why perhaps it goes Bilal's way, but I just don't think that Bilal actually did more than JDM. I think JDM landed more and was, more evasive on the feet. But regardless, round one's kind of a lackluster round in that fight. Now, round two, yeah, and just to give you guys perspective, like when we look at actual stats, okay, round one, total strikes, Jack Della made a 28, Bilal 21. He misses a takedown, Bilal that is. And then significant strikes, 21 for Bilal and 28 for Jack. So I think if you're looking at it from that perspective, Jack wins that. Round two is another round that has to go to Jack, in my opinion. You've got 30 strikes total to 21. So you got Jack with 30, Bilal with 21. And then a 30 significant strikes, 21 for Bilal. So once again, you've got Jack, I think, clinching that round in round two. I think Jack was doing exactly what I broke down, guys. He's switching those stances so fluidly and catching Bilal. I want to say, though, Bilal gets so much credit for me because this was not only was this his most entertaining fight of his career, he has that dog. He was fucking swinging back. He looked crispy on the feet, actually. He didn't have Canelo hands because Canelo doesn't get hit like that. But I will say, he looked solid on the feet. He had power and pop behind his shots. It looked like he was catching Jack and not hurting him, but definitely making Jack, I think, hesitate a bit more on the feet. So I have to give a lot of credit to Bilal. He looked fantastic in the striking last night. Round three, this one ends up being a pretty close round. And I guess from a perspective of if you're just looking at stats and then forward pressure, perhaps you could give this to Bilal, given that it was a 32 strikes for Bilal, 35 for Jack. And then 32 for Bilal and significant, 34 for Jack and significant. I guess one of Jack's strikes was not significant, so whatever. Regardless, I think when you look at those types of stats, that looks like, yeah, it could go. But I think the way I saw it, guys, was Bilal only getting round four, I think it was. I think I had it 4-1 Jack. Round four, no, I mean, even then, dude, it's just like, so looking at round four, I remember this round being, a bit more scrappy, but I think this is where Jack really started to, you started to see Bilal get hurt more by the shots that Jack was landing. Looking at the strikes alone, Bilal had 35 total strikes and Jack had 51. Bilal did get one of his 3 takedowns in this round, but then significant strikes, Jack landed 33 and Bilal landed 31. So I think that in this case, Jack was more active on the feet in terms of volume, landing 51 total strikes, but a majority of those strikes were not significant compared to Bilal, who had 35 total strikes with 31 significant. Jack was 51 total with 33 significant. So I think from that perspective, you could maybe draw a parallel, like Bilal getting that takedown and having pretty much the same amount of significant strikes. Perhaps it edges his way. Round 5. So in round 5, this is where damage outweighs takedowns, guys. Total strikes, Bilal's got 46. 27 of those are significant. Jack has 56. 53 of those are significant. So that is a huge drop off, guys. Like 53 to 27 significant strikes in favor of Jack Della Maddalena. And then let's look at the takedowns. So Bilal gets 2 of 2 takedowns in round 5, but he doesn't do much of anything with those takedowns. Jack is able to scramble back up to the feet, and he actually gets into a finishing sequence, hitting Bilal with the similar knee that he caught Mr. Dorino Burns with, and then he just starts unloading. And dude, this is where, if you guys watch that breakdown video I made, Jack mixes these body shots so beautifully. He was crispy. He got a couple hooks to the body on Bilal, went right back up to the top, back down to the body. Bilal looked against the cage. He looked like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do right now, because he's getting caught to the liver. Jack's peppering the liver, coming right back up top to the chin. I think Bilal at the very end of the fight was like, he was just outmatched. And Jack, like I said in my breakdowns, Jack is a guy who goes to finish fights. He doesn't like decisions. So he is going to be, from bell to bell, he's going to be trying to finish you. Go look at any of his fights, even the ones that end in decision. He's still trying, at the very end of the fight, to get his opponent out of there. Ultimately, guys, I had this fight 4-1. It was a masterclass performance from Jack Della Maddalena. I'm not going to shit on Bilal because Bilal finally got a fight of the night bonus. He brought the fight to Jack. He didn't shoot that many takedowns. Like, we all have to give Bilal some major respect here. Like, going into this fight, he probably did the dumber thing of like trying to strike with Jack versus implementing the same game plan he always does. But I respect that because I think from a fan's perspective, Bilal wanted to give us a good fight, and it was a fantastic fight. This is going to go down in history probably. So much respect to Bilal, but we got a new champ in town, and Jack Della Maddalena. I think, guys, he is going to put up a great fight if he does go against Islam, and I actually think that people might think this is crazy. I think Jack has the goods to beat Islam. I know Islam's trained with a lot of heavier guys, and like heavier guys have said like, oh yeah, you should see him in the gym. He's taking down heavyweights. I get all that, but dude, Islam has not been in the cage with a bigger opponent who actually is like just naturally is big or bigger than him. And also he hasn't fought a striker like Jack Della Maddalena. Dustin Poirier is a great boxer, fantastic boxer, but the big difference in this is that Jack Della Maddalena is essentially a Dustin Poirier with more weight and size. So when you consider that sort of thing, Jack has the ability to put a pressure and a pace on Islam, especially from a striking perspective, but also amazing takedown defense. Jack has the ability to potentially catch Islam and hurt him badly. I think Jack could knock out Islam, guys. I'm not saying that's my initial pick here when they finally fight. I am saying that I think he has what it takes to get that win. Okay. Now I want to go in and break down the next fight in the main card. So we're going to just break down the main and co-main, and then we'll dive into every fight on the card. Let's go back here. It says I like to look at the stats. So in this fight, guys, Valentina versus Manon Fiorot, I feel overall, guys, Valentina got the win, and it was unanimous from my perspective. There was no way I could even find. I can't see how Manon gets a win here. Just based off of, let's just look at these stats. The stats for the fight overall. Total strikes, 173 for Valentina, 150 for Manon Fiorot. Takedowns, 2 out of 9 for Valentina, 1 of 12 for Manon Fiorot. So not only does Valentina have more takedowns, but she has a better percentage. I don't know if the percentage really matters, but still. And then look at the significant strikes. Now, this is interesting. Significant strikes, Valentina only landed 72 and Manon only landed 71. But from that perspective, the percentage is still in favor of Valentina with a 48% significant strike rate versus a 44% for Manon. And also, finally, knockdowns. Valentina has a knockdown in the fight. All of those things just overall, I think you have to consider, like if you were just to look at the stats overall, the fight would go in Valentina's favor. But now, round 1, you got 57 total strikes from Valentina. She got a takedown. She landed more significant strikes. She landed 19 of 57 significant strikes. Or 19 of 36 it is, but out of her total strikes, she had 19 significant and then 57 total strikes, whereas Manon had 20 total strikes and 13 significant. But in this round, Valentina scores a knockdown. So, that's interesting because I thought that's really weird, guys. I think the UFC website's fucked up because they scored a takedown in round 1 for Valentina, which I do think I remember a sequence where it looked like it might have been a knockdown, but I don't think they officially scored it that way. But when you look at the full fight stats, it shows 1 knockdown for Valentina. But in round 4, she actually did score a knockdown. So I don't know how that is computing here. Anyways, round 1 easily goes to Valentina. Round 2, total strikes from Valentina is 21. Total strikes from Manon's 31. Significant strikes, 8 for Valentina, 12 for Manon. I see. The knockdowns, guys, is when I'm looking at the UFC's website, the knockdowns is just overall. So it just stays at 1-0. So round 2, I think, was a pretty lackluster round, but that definitely probably goes the way of Manon. Round 3, Valentina picks it back up, 36 total strikes versus 29 for Manon, and then 14 and 14. They're both even in terms of their significant strikes. But I think that just looking at these stats, not digging into the tape or whatever, I think you could argue this goes to Valentina. Now going to round 4, total strikes are pretty close. Valentina has 29, Manon has 32, but Valentina has 16 significant strikes, whereas Manon only had 14. And this is actually the round where Valentina got the knockdown. So Valentina definitely clinches this round, in my opinion. I'm not going to get into the whole clinch thing because I think the clinching is just bullshit anyways. And then round 5. So I think on the scorecards at this point, you got to go round 1, 3, and 4 for Valentina, and then perhaps round 2 and 5, arguably, for Manon. Round 5, Valentina's got 30 total strikes. Manon has 38. And then from a significant strike perspective, we've got Valentina with 15 and Manon with 18. So I think you could give this to Manon. But from that perspective, you're looking at a 3-2 win, which is a unanimous decision for the Bullet, Valentina Shevchenko. She also had one of the dopest fight kits that we've seen. So props to her. So that is my recap of the main and co-main event. Now let's dive in, guys, to just the overall fight card. I'm not going to break these ones down so super significantly. I just kind of go through each fight in and of itself. Looking at the first fight on the card, this was a crazy win for Bezkat Almakhan. As you guys probably saw if you watched my picks video, I had said that Bezkat Almakhan has the potential to KO Brad Katona, which is in hindsight a great pick, but at the time a bit of a crazy pick at the same time because Brad has never been knocked out before. And this is the first time he gets caught and put out cold by Bezkat Almakhan. Brad's a great fighter, but dude, I just feel like the way Bezkat dropped Umar Nurmagomedov, it definitely made me think like, fuck, this guy has some hands on him. He's got them paws. And he put it on Brad Katona. Brad Katona went out cold. Brad, he should be scared. He's fighting Brad Katona. That's how Brad talked on Ultimate Fighter. He's got to fight Brad Katona. Great win from Bezkat. Next fight on the card, we got Daniel Santos versus Xianglong Li. Okay, this ended up being a horrible pick, guys. I think myself and the other creators I'm tracking in my pick tracker all picked Li, and I think Li got whomped on, dude. Daniel Santos was in control of this fight from start to finish. Daniel Santos, he looked thicker than Li out there. Like, he looked thick. It's crazy he was making bantamweight. He looks like a different human being from his bantamweight showings to this showing. Like, literally different human being. Like, way bigger. Yeah, he did a great job. He just really controlled this fight from start to finish, in my opinion. Not much to write home about, but just controlled Li with consistent takedowns and pressure on the ground. Next fight on the card, we got Marc-Andre Barrio versus Bruno Silva. I made a horrible pick here, guys. I picked Bruno Silva. I thought that because Marc-Andre Barrio and both him and Silva are on a losing streak, I just looked at the recent losses that Marc's had, and they were pretty devastating KOs. So I thought Bruno Silva would be able to, find a kill shot, land on Marc and hurt him and put him out. It goes the other way. Power bar fucking puts him up against the cage and elbows him to death. And Barrio just from a physique perspective, looked way stronger than Bruno Silva. But I do hope Bruno Silva recovers okay. I know he had to go to the hospital. That was a very scary KO, guys. Like, watching that made me kind of think, are we going to see our first, boxing situation where maybe Bruno Silva has, long-lasting damage from this? But from what it sounds like, well, it's crazy. When they were doing, throughout the rest of the card, guys, when they were doing the update for Bruno, the medical update, I'm sitting there, when I watch fights, I can get so glued to the sound of the fight happening. I get tunnel vision, and so every time the little medical update popped up, I just wasn't hearing what John Anik was saying. So I miss all the updates there. But from what I've heard online, it seems like he's recovering. He was able to exit the hospital. So hope he recovers, has a speedy recovery. And I don't know. I think he should probably retire at this point, though. I think he's taken a lot of damage, and he's up there in age. He's turning 38. I believe, 37 or 38 years old, so he's definitely up there in age. Moving on to this is the start of the prelims, because that was the early prelims. We got Navajo Sterling versus Ivan Erslan. Very, very good fight from Ivan Erslan. Ivan was landing that right hand, guys, all of round 1. Now, one thing that I want to point out, though, Sterling was throwing that sneaky body kick, okay? And I don't know if you guys watched this, but if you watch the fight back, he was landing on the right arm, the right forearm and elbow area of Ivan Erslan. Ivan Erslan's arm was toast by round 2. So it was actually a very good game plan from Navajo. He was hurting the main weapon that Ivan had, which I think as the fight went on, it lowered the steam coming his way, which I think opened him some opportunities there to be a bit more risky to land his own shots, which I think set up that beautiful straight down the middle at the end of the fight where he hurt Ivan badly and almost closed the show out with a KO. But Navajo Sterling has that city kickboxing style, very pretty striking on the feet. What I like about Navajo, though, compared to some of the other city kickboxing folks, he really goes for the kill, especially in the later rounds. He continues to find a way to try to finish and close out the fight, which I respect a lot. He doesn't want to go to judge's decision. I think he always has done this. Like, even when he's had closer fights earlier in the career in the UFC, he's going for that finish in the round, in the final round. Next fight on the card, Modestas Bukauskas versus Ian Cutelaba. This was a very fun fight, definitely back and forth. I do feel that watching the fight live, they were giving a lot more credence to some of the Ian Cutelaba strikes that I don't think were necessarily fair to that of Modestas. I feel Modestas was kind of outlanding him, landing heavier shots, more critical shots, if you will, especially like some of the shots he landed on Ian's leg and kind of buckled him, but then also was just clipping him with the straight. Oh God, here we go. We're gonna die again, guys. That fucking blows. Okay, well, I'm just going raw now, boys. So this is a close fight. It ends up being a lot closer than I think a lot of people online thought it would be. But ultimately, I think Modestas getting the nod here was the right decision from the judges. And I'm definitely not saying that because I chose Modestas to win. It's definitely not a reason why I think he should get it. Anyways, moving on, we've got Jessica Andrade versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. And Jasmine looked fantastic last night, guys. I knew Jasmine was going to get the win here. Jessica Andrade has always been a scrappy fighter, always has that power behind her. But I just feel when she fights a fighter who can strike back and land their own shots, that like she's just, especially a striker that's a lot bigger than her, she can't handle it. I think she ends up getting hit. What's up?
I need that hair tie on yours.
So ultimately, when I look at Jasmine in this fight, she looked fantastic on the feet, but then also was able to mix in the grappling and get her to the ground, get her back, land some heavy shots from there, opening up the neck. And once that neck opened up, it was all she wrote. Jasmine grabbed onto that thing, cinched up the rear naked, and gets a beautiful finish in her hometown. Guys, I think the only Canadian to lose, Prepelec lost as well, but we actually had more wins, I believe, from Canadian talent this time than not Canadian. And that's a perfect segue into the next fight. We got Mike Malott versus Charles Chuck Buffalo Radke. Now, I picked Chuck Buffalo to get the W in this one. And guys, Chuck Buffalo looked good. He did land a few heavy shots. The thing that worried me with Mike Malott, guys, and I'm going to say this, watching the promos that the UFC cuts right before they show the fight, I was seeing all these Mike Malott KOs, and I'm like, damn, dude, Mike Malott is actually a lot crispier than perhaps I remember. I just truly had a bad taste in my mouth with that Neil Magny loss where he was dominating the fight but then got caught. What worried me with that is that I don't think Mike Malott handles damage very well in these fights. Like, even when Chuck Buffalo landed a few glancing blows, like, Mike Malott looked like he had a different look on his face where it was like, I don't know if he likes this. Chuck Buffalo was getting tagged but kept going forward, kept trying to land his shots. Ultimately, Mike Malott, I think, was mixing it up better in round one, especially with the toes to the gut he was throwing. I think ultimately Mike Malott was probably going to edge round one out. Although Chuck Buffalo landed some heavy, steaky, beefy shots on Mike Malott. The next round, Mike Malott goes back out. They're trading. They're going back and forth. Mike Malott lands a crispy hook right on the chin of Chuck Buffalo, dropping him to the ground. Gets on top of him, lands some heavy ground and pound shots, just putting him out cold, knocking the mouthpiece out, I'm pretty sure. He fucked him up, man. And Mike Malott got the W for Canada, so good for him, man. It was a great win for him. Shocking he didn't get a performance or, finish bonus there, but that's just what happens, guys. Next fight on the card, we got Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Prepelec. This is a good fight. I think Kyle Prepelec definitely had a good showing for himself, being that he was a very short notice fighter on this. He came out there and wanted to scrap. Benoit really was in control of the fight for most of the entire fight. I do think Kyle Prepelic had success on the feet, though. He landed a few good shots on Benoit, and I was like, guys, shout out to the gamblers out there if you guys could get a huge plus 900. But Benoit is able to kind of impose his will in round 2 and then ultimately get the submission win over Kyle Prepelic. Next up on the card, Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. Solid fight, guys. I think Alexa Grasso definitely lost round 1, but watching the fight, Alexa Grasso definitely brought out that Mexican spirit. She was trading, trying to land, walking Natalia down at points, but Natalia Silva really just was a crispier and better striker in this matchup. She was tagging Alexa Grasso and also, I think, mixing up different strikes, some kicks to the body, kicks to the head, just mixing things up more than Alexa was, in my opinion. But Alexa still had that crispy boxing, was able to land a few great shots on Natalia Silva herself. But ultimately, I think that this decision was very clear in favor of Natalia Silva. Next fight, and the last fight on the card, since I've already reviewed the co and main events, we've got Jose Aldo versus Aiemann Zahabi. This was a fun fight, guys. Aiemann Zahabi came out there to scrap, and so did Jose Aldo. I think that it was a pretty close fight throughout, rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, Jose, picks up some momentum and really hurts Aiemann Zahabi. Dude, fucking soccer kicks him, basically almost soccer kicks him, knocks him down, lands a knee, but Aiemann Zahabi's like rolling around the octagon looking like Ariel Helwani, and he just pops up and he starts going for it, and Jose is gassed. And that's the one thing that I noticed in this fight, guys, is that Aiemann Zahabi, even though he would get hurt, he kept pushing the pace, because I think he knew from a cardio perspective, he's going to be the one to edge this out, and that's exactly what he did. He brought that cardio to the octagon, and I think that was too much for Jose. And then ultimately, after that finishing sequence, or what would have been a finishing sequence if Jose had the gas, Aiemann flips it around and actually puts Jose in horrible spots in round 3, and he almost closes the fight out himself at the end of round 3. But ultimately, I think that in this case, it was a close fight, guys, and maybe people could argue that it goes to Aldo, but I feel like the way I looked at it, I think Aiemann was just edging out the other rounds. And then also you have to bring into account the fact that Aiemann Zahabi's the hometown hero in this matchup. I just think that because he was, Canadian, and that also, the rounds were close to where I don't think that Jose like necessarily clinched a round per se. So it could go either way. And in my opinion, when it can go either way like that, and I'm not saying either way in the sense of like a biased outlook of it. I'm saying if we can all objectively say these are close rounds and either fighter could technically get the round, I do feel like from a hometown perspective, they're going to get that round. And it makes sense because it's close. So you go with the guy who is, got the pressure behind him, because I think that's a big attribute that these hometown fights bring. And I don't think that there was any type of robbery here, though. I think that Aiemann Zahabi did get this win pretty convincingly. And it was very, very cool to see him be kind of on death's door, if you will, almost finished in the last round, and then rolling out of it and just taking control of the fight in his own hands, getting Jose down, and then starting to land some ground and pound at the very end. So ultimately, guys, this fight card was fantastic. I had a lot of fun watching this. I was engaged from start to finish, and I'm very happy with kind of the output and the turnout of these fights, because now we're going to get to see an amazing matchup between JDM and Islam. And now, welterweight, guys, is really fucked. If you think about it, JDM being champ now, and Islam probably getting the stamp of approval from the UFC to go up and go for the second belt. But you've got basically 4 number 1 contenders potentially. I mean, really, Sean Brady's the true number 1 contender, okay? And then you got Ian Gary, who's right there. Ian Gary was the backup fighter for the championship fight. So, Ian Gary could be another next in line. We got Shavkat, who literally won the number 1 contender fight against Gary, who's literally, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Is he going to lose that spot? Or is because the thing that sucks for Shavkat, guys, is he did the UFC a favor. He already had a fight booked with Bilal for the championship belt, and Bilal got hurt. So Shavkat could have just said, I'm going to wait. But no, he said, I'll take on Ian Gary and wins that fight. Not a fun fight, but he wins it. So Shavkat technically did the UFC a solid with that one. I think a lot of people are forgetting about. But then you've got Usman versus Buckley, where if Buckley beats Usman, he is also potentially next in line. So you have a kind of a murderer's row of contenders coming up. I think that, guys, if Jack can beat Islam, he is the perfect champ to have in welterweight because he's going to be active. He already had said that he would love to go on the Perth card. That's only a few months away. And I think, guys, what would be really solid is on that Perth card, if we can get Jack versus Islam main event, co-main of Volkanovski versus Mavzar Evloev. What a pairing that would be. 2 Aussies versus 2 Russians. Imagine that fucking fight card at the RAC Arena. Let's fucking go. That would be solid, and I think everybody would be, everybody and their friends would want to tune into that one. So I'm hoping that happens in September. Hopefully the UFC can get those matchups made. And then also now we've got the Topuria versus Charles Oliveira fight that is bound to happen, International Fight Week. So just overall great fights that we've got in store, and things are shaping up to look pretty positive here for the UFC in the next couple months. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you give this a like, and if you are wanting to tune into all of my UFC prediction videos, but also my recaps, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you are in tune when I am posting my content.